stand or?
It's up to you.
Okay.
It's up to you.
I'll sit
I think you sit down. Sit down. Yeah. Sit down.
So, thank you very much for this opportunity. I was approached to have a discussion with youth and young startups and entrepreneurs about entrepreneurship. I thought, am I the right guy to actually tell guys that are in business or trying to make it out there about entrepreneurship? But I thought, let me rather share, because I think there are people that on this panel are more qualified than I am, as people that are essentially living the experience of entrepreneurship in the real sense. Who can speak more about those types of experiences. From a Microsoft perspective, Microsoft has been in Nigeria for the last 14 years. We are a company that's over 20 years old now. In Africa, we operate in almost 19 countries. We've actually just recently opened up an office in Ghana, in Kenya, whereas those offices used to be managed out of Nigeria. So effectively, as a business, we are expanding our footprint in the African continent, and essentially by so doing, creating opportunities for more of our young people to come on board in the company. But also, I think the critical aspect of this is the opportunity that creates for our ecosystem of partners and essentially young startups, entrepreneurs, people that are actually running businesses that are based and founded on essentially providing Microsoft or Microsoft-related type of services to the broader industries, whether that be in government, whether that be in the private sector, whether that be working with NGOs, whether that be working with education and the like. And so in Nigeria, we have over 2,000 partners in our ecosystem. What does that mean? It means that we have businesses, companies that essentially started up as a basis of essentially striking a partnership and becoming Microsoft. Either they become Microsoft resellers of technology, they become Microsoft systems integrators, or they become Microsoft consultants for that matter. And so it always creates an opportunity for the young people and the young businesses that want to join our ecosystem to find out about the products and services that Microsoft provides as a global company. We have an extensive channel model and a model that is focused around how we actually create a multiplying effect in the economy by essentially making sure that those businesses are successful, as we do not necessarily always provide these types of consulting and integration services directly to the end customers, whether those be banks, government, or education customers and the like. Apart from the commercial aspects of what we do as a business, we also have a lot of investment initiatives that are driven through For Africa program. And For Africa was launched last year, so it's going for its second year in operation. When we initiated For Africa, we essentially thought about how Microsoft essentially could, apart from just being a pure commercial entity, given an understanding of the idiosyncrasies within the African context, how could we as a business begin to adopt a developmental approach, an approach that would help spur on businesses, but at the same time, and I will be very honest with you, also help to essentially further our commercial interests as well. So there is a selfish interest, and I'll be very transparent with you about that, because as we build more businesses, and so we also benefit from the success of those enterprises that we create. And those enterprises then become the future prospective employers in the ecosystem and in the economy. We call it the multiplier effect, and essentially what it means is, if you want to quantify for every $2 that there is in the economy, call it within the total addressable market, out of $10, for every $2 that essentially comes to Microsoft, $8 stays within the economy through this type of model. Because we create businesses through the demand for our products and services. So let me park the commercial aspects a little bit and then maybe come to some of the investment developmental initiatives that we run. So for Africa, for us, it's essentially a program that is targeted at essentially helping to unleash and unlock economic opportunity within the African context. And it's pivoted around three main pillars. The first one is very much around how do we essentially bring about youth development and youth employability. So very focused on particularly the younger generation. For obvious reasons, I think the people around this audience would appreciate that one of the key competitive advantages that the African continent has is its young population. But that could be our Achilles heel as well as a continent if we leave that population unattended or idle, because they would then turn into unfortunately the wrong side of society, and would cause all sorts of other social ills as a result of youth that do not find a means of gainful engagement, a means of gainful employment. So that's why that's important to us, and that's why we think it's important also for the continent. The second piece is around skills for employability, and the skills for employability is essentially cost cutting, right? Whether young or old, whichever business position you come from, essentially it's looking at how do we solve for some of the structural unemployment challenges that we find in the economy. And don't quote me on this one, but unfortunately the traditional way of academia and how pedagogy is delivered, unless it is complemented or augmented with real tangible skills, and skills that are able to be utilized from day one when you get into the employment place, it becomes irrelevant. So you get youth graduating with certain qualifications, whether they be in engineering, in social studies, in legal studies, etc., in marketing, or whatever the case may be. But for them to become productive in the workplace, they need a certain set of skills. So there's a bridging period through which that person has to go through in order for them to be contributing positively to the businesses that employ them. And so we seek to actually make sure that those people are able to get into gainful employment from day zero through some of these programs. And beyond that, beyond the borders of the continent, we also, as a global company, we also are aware that global competitiveness means that the people that are in the various countries, in the various localities in the African continent have to stand their own among their peers in the rest of the world. So we cannot train essentially people to just be relevant in the African continent. They have to be equally as capable and equally as sharp as with people coming from the US or European markets or any other market for that matter. So that's the thrust of that part. The third pillar is really around access. Access as a broad scope term, has so many different permutations, but access to technology, as an example, is a key ingredient for driving economic development. Think about, for instance, if you think about farmers, emerging farmers, and their ability to access the right market at the right price at the right time becomes crucial for their survival. And I know that farming and agriculture for the Nigerian context is a big industry and an industry that employs a lot of labor, right? It's a labor-intensive industry, and in essence, it's one of those industries through potentially even getting people access to technology and information, you can then essentially, catapult it into a very, very significant contributor to overall GDP. So those are the three sort of main areas that I wanted to just table. And of course, we have a number of programs that are associated with these main sort of strategic areas of our investment and development initiative. Programs such as DreamSpark, where for young entrepreneurs, startups, we make software and development tools available for free. And a lot of times when I say this, people look at me and say, Microsoft for free, really? And essentially it is true. There is software that is available for developers. We have developers. We have a developer here, and I was just sharing with Kelechi, in one of our cynical sort of conversations, that it is true to actually have a viable enterprise. One of those examples is Gamso, who essentially was a startup gaming company. They do online gaming, and they have a gaming application that has enjoyed the highest number of downloads throughout the continent. 6 million downloads, per month on that page. So now, if you put in place the business models behind it and how they monetize, you can imagine the opportunity because this becomes a global play and not just an African play. And we need to begin to export, these types of innovations and export our technology to the rest of the world, as opposed to always being consumers and importers of net importers of technology. That's one such example, which is driven out of DreamSpark. We have a number of other programs. For instance, one such key one from a skills for employability perspective is Partners in Learning, through which we are able to make technology available to the student population. So at university level and primary education level, giving them access to productivity tools, the same tools that could enable them to be more productive in the workplace that I spoke about earlier, and starting to make those tools available for them to learn and be taught at a very early stage, so that it becomes part and parcel of their qualification as they go into and they prepare to go into the workplace. And that is part of our investment. And then we do things like, under sort of the access to technology, we participate in various sort of industry fora with government and sort of the telecommunication industry around white space and how we utilize white space for providing affordable, cheap access to broadband technology, so that people, with devices, whether it be phone, tablets, or whatever the case may be, are able to access broadband affordably. Because we know that one of the big bottlenecks or challenges is the cost of connectivity, the cost of broadband infrastructure, so that you are then able to use these smart applications, these smart devices. Maybe let me stop there. And then open it up if there's any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.